mean by print media, and by doing so we compared it with other kinds of media also, like the TV, like the radio, like the internet, or you know many other forms of media also. We also discussed about podcasts also, right? And we also discussed about what exactly is the situation of newspapers in India vis-a-vis other countries also. We discussed about a very brief history about the newspaper in India, James Augustus Hickey, that we discussed yesterday, and we also discussed into about the reasons as to why newspapers, were in greater demand, how the demand increased, what were the factors that governed the increase. Main factors were in those days, historically speaking, cultural awakening, and of course our bigger fight was not to fight hunger. More than hunger, we wanted freedom in those days. You should know that also. And even now, many people want freedom when compared to even hunger. Or they don't mind going hungry a couple of times, but they want freedom. This is how we have normal. That's a human instinct also. So we also discussed about several newspapers which are more than 100 years old, and we also discussed about the way the technology is able to help out in bringing out the newspapers, magazines, journals, periodicals, all these things. Yesterday, this is what we discussed yesterday. And we also discussed about the nuances of writing, the simple things of writing. How do you write? So for journalists, we need to write in a very simple manner. You should know that you are not writing for your sister or your boyfriend or for your father or grandfather, but you are writing for a reader. So a journalist, when he writes, he thinks about nobody else other than the reader. So the reader can be anyone. He can be anyone, known, unknown. So for that, we also discussed yesterday one KISS, keep it short and simple. That also we discussed. We discussed about abbreviations also. Then we discussed about how there are many ways of writing. How you can write. You can write in the form of newspapers. You can write in the form of blogs. You can write in the form of articles, in magazines, newspapers, periodicals, journals. You can also have lots of involvement in every kind of writing that you would like, including a novel, maybe a fiction novel. You can write a book review, you can write a cinema review. Just write, that's all. Okay. And you should and you will become a good writer. That's what we discussed yesterday. When you become a good reader, and the same thing I told you also, that you will become a very good speaker if you are a good listener. So all of you are now listening to my class, so obviously I'm sure you will be able to understand, by listening, how we should also be able to articulate when we try to speak. So please stop me if I'm too fast. Am I too fast? I want your feedback. Is it okay? Is my speed okay?
It's better if you can modulate it, sir. A little
Good.
slower, I think good.
Okay, okay, I'll slow it down. Thank you for that feedback, because I need to know. There's no point in my saying anything unless you don't understand it. That is one of the important parts of communication, is to keep ensuring now and then that you are able to, understand what I'm expecting you to understand. That's one of the most important things. So we discussed yesterday, about this also, and we also discussed how you can use attending workshops or seminars to improve your techniques of writing, and keep on reading a lot of literature. Obviously, that is needless to say. Then many things that we also said with tools of writing, with techniques of writing and then tools of writing. So how will you uh, tools means, it's not, like newspaper article characteristics. There are certain characteristics when you write an article. It depends on author, it depends on frequency. Okay, Madabushi Sridhar, the Central Information Commissioner, keeps writing every Tuesday. He writes every Wednesday. Ramu writes. So every now and then somebody writes. Some people write frequently. Some people write on subject. They focus on that. If you take Lieutenant General Saeed writes on border issues and other things. If you take Indian Express. So we have so many things also. And then another important thing is you can use photographs or illustrations as a tool to enhance your writing. So you are what there is a saying, that one photograph is equal to 1,000 words. So a photograph will add life to your story. And then what adds life to a photograph? Can you tell me what adds life to a photograph? One is the photograph adds life to your story. So if your story is supported with a very good photograph, it really enhances the quality of your story. But then in other words, you're putting life to your story with the help of a very good photograph relevant to your story. But then what gives life to a photograph? Any idea? Can I give you a hint in the chat?
The
Okay, I
caption.
very good, extremely good, right? Very good, right? A caption gives life to the uh, photograph. This is very, very important. So, as good as just as a photograph gives life to the story, we have what is known as the one second. We have what is known as the caption giving life to the photograph, because sometimes what happens, many people may not even know who is who in a photograph. So this caption will help him to know what is all that. And in addition to that, we discussed yesterday the most important point, that just by having your story, just by having your photographs would not suffice, would not be sufficient. What is essential for you to ensure that all the hard work is of no use if you don't properly lay out your story, if you do not make up your story, in the sense page makeup, the way you organize your story on a page, is it presentable? Yesterday somebody was using the word legible. Now legibility comes in the way you present also. How are you positioning the headline? Where are you positioning the photograph? How are you giving the caption? How are you actually presenting your story among all other stories in a newspaper page? And so each story has its own prominence, its own significance. And this is what we tried to discuss in yesterday's class when we ran out of time. We had about 1 hour time. So with that, we will now move forward. Today, we are going to Unit 2. So we are going to Unit 2. Is yesterday, having studied a little bit about newspapers and other things, we are now going to discuss actually when you go to a newspaper office, what is that you see? Normally when you visit a newspaper organization, what happens there, what takes place there? Is it like any other organization, like any maybe in your corporate organization or anything such that? Yes, good old newspapers and all that we have. All newspapers are well established institutions or organizations, and they have a structure, they have some functions of management. Like any other manufacturing industry, they do have functions of management. So we'll discuss a little bit of what exactly takes place in a newspaper office and how a newspaper comes out. We don't have time, otherwise I would run a maybe in tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow. Tomorrow I think we don't have a class. On 7th when we meet, I'll try to play a video of about 5 to 10 minutes, YouTube video on how a newspaper is produced, so that you will have an idea of, because now we can't go personally because of this COVID. Otherwise, I would very much love to take you to a newspaper organization on a field visit when you can actually see the live newspaper printing, and then you will be wondering how exciting it is to uh, to see the way the newspaper is printed. Mind you, it comes every day morning, right? So newspaper organization is almost a 24/7 organization. Barring 4 or 5 days of important festival days, newspaper by and large works for 361 days maximum. Okay, and then by and large 24/7 if you take into account. Though they are very very, when the rest of the world sleeps, newspaper is awake throughout. The entire night is spent in bringing out the newspaper. Now, just as how we all of you know the functions of management anywhere on, some of you may be employed, and you know the functions of management. We have this post core POSD CORB. All of us know. So all these functions of management that take place in every other organization also take place in newspaper organization. So it has to be a very well orchestrated. Orchestrated means well arranged management functions like planning. Everything you have to have that kind of a planning, organizing, staffing. We all know that direction. We all have studied this coordinating, reporting, budgeting. We all might have studied, maybe even in intermediate also sometimes, functions of management. These are the basic functions of management called as POSDCORB. Let me see if I can put it in the chat here. Yeah, I'll just put that in the chat. Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can put it in the chat. All of you, I hope you know what is this. So if you get a, if you have somebody asks you a question on functions of management, just remember this you know abbreviations, and then इसका मतलब क्या है? So planning है, okay. Then organizing, okay, we call it as organizing, okay. ये functions है ना, इसीलिए verb लगाएंगे. But planning, organizing, post, okay. Yes, yes is again. what is known as staffing. So you have staffing also there, and you have direction. Now somebody has to give direction. The manager gives direction to the employees. And this, I have worked in a factory situation for about 5 years in industrial situation where we do this without theory. We automatically by default we perform all these functions. ఏది చేయాలి, ఏది ముందు చేయాలి కాదు. We all function all this planning, organizing, staffing, direction. And then we also have coordinating. This is very essential. I'm sure when I worked in a very big organization in the West Indies, I had the role of coordinating because as an Indian, I was the only person who was trying to put all the people together in a management function. So we coordinate. Sometimes the production manager, the operations manager are at loggerheads. They fight. They fight literally. Then sometimes we mediate and we coordinate. No, 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 ठीक है भाई, ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं है. मकसद ये है कि we have to get the work done. We have to see that the work goes. We have to see that the newspaper comes out. I mean, some such situation should always be there. And these are all known as management functions. Coordinating, you always coordinate in such a way that everything moves smoothly. Then also no reporting. We are always very tough role of reporting to our top management. All of us, the lower level, middle level, top level management, ये पूरा होते रहता है. नीचे वाला बीच वाले को, बीच वाला ऊपर को, एक एक बार नीचे वाला सीधा ऊपर वाले के पास चले जाएगा. All these things will do take place as part of functions of management. So please remember that we do report, and then so another function is what is known as reporting. Okay,
Budgeting.
report. Yeah. Okay, we have reporting, and then we have what is known
Budgeting.
as the most important thing. All of you is पैसे के बिना कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता है ना. इसके तो ये मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग इज दिस. सब इसको पहले क्यों नहीं लगाते हैं ना. पहले की बात नहीं है. डोंट वरी अबाउट द सीक्वेंस, but the budgeting has to take place. In any organization, the budgeting is the main essence of any management. This is, of course, we have studied. ये पूरा हर जगह होता है उसी तरह. Even in a newspaper office, we have the same situation. This is all the functions of management. But let us come to a structure of a newspaper. So when you enter a newspaper office, what is it that you will be able to find in a newspaper organization? What are all the departments you will find? And what are the departments that you find? So you will find when you enter a newspaper organization, of course, everybody says security to hai. आजकल security के बिना कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. Because security has one, yes, very important thing these days. Because and security after nearly after this reforms 1990 के बाद में, when companies started coming, this has become one of the biggest employers in our country also. Anyway, security is set apart them. The most important thing is that is normally neglected department. But then editorial is one of the most important departments for a newspaper. So what constitutes in the editorial, क्या होता है वहाँ पर, क्या क्या है उसमें, that I will tell you as we go along. So editorial is one department where everything related to the news stories, everything related to articles, everything related to magazine supplement, everything that is related, that is going into the newspaper in the next day's paper, is completely manned, is managed, is coordinated in the editorial department. So these are the people who will be actually deciding the fate of the newspaper when it comes out the next day. Another important department in a newspaper organization, that the lifeline of the whole newspaper, is advertising. Advertising मतलब पैसे आने वाला है. ये एडवर्टाइजमेंट के बिना पेपर तो नहीं चल पाएगा, आपको तनख्वाह नहीं दे पाएंगे. We will not be able to pay salaries to you unless we don't get advertising. So advertisement is one of the most important things. There are many newspapers in India which don't get even one advertisement, but they survive. They survive. They use all the money. They go on loss, but they still survive for some other reasons that we will be able to discuss that later. So advertising is another department where advertisements are sought, and then you have people who will go and get advertisements from various prospective clients who want to give an advertisement in a newspaper. Aparna Housing Mala देगा एक full page advertisement. Benz car वाला देगा full page advertisement. Jagan Mohan Reddy will give one full page advertisement. Now Yogi is giving too many advertisements. Uttar Pradesh elections are going to come. So many advertisements do appear, and the advertising department coordinates all these things. And in such a way, then the rates of it, the tariff, and everything, they take care of that. Another important thing which is linked with advertising is circulation department. So advertisement wala kya bolega, I'm a client, I'm a Benz owner, BMW. I want to give an advertisement, but then I'll ask him, I'm going to spend about 3 lakhs for full page. एक दिन में 3 लाख मैं आपको खर्चा कर रहा हूँ. आपका सर्कुलेशन क्या है? आपका 10,000 है तो मेरा कुछ भी मुनाफा नहीं है. I don't get any benefit out of it. So circulation is again interlinked. So many people go for subscription. It can be e-paper subscription, or you get your paper at your house. So how many lakhs you print per day? Sunday sometimes you get more. So circulation is a department where this department takes care of coordinating the sale of the paper. The sale of the paper, जो भी आपको 12 रुपए संडे होता, other days is 5 rupees or 6 rupees, the newspaper. So they try to get in as many customers as possible. The more the customers, the more the prospect of advertisements pouring into the newspaper office. Then you have another important department is personnel department, main human resources department. हम कहते हैं human resources. So we do staffing. That is what we have staffing. Whom do you identify? Editors, sub editors, resident editors, chief sub editor, assistant editors, sports editors, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. All those people, reporters again you have special correspondents and all those people. So editorial have people advertising. You have copywriters, you have designers, you have typographers, you have layout people. You may have in that department all these people. Or circulation department, you have people who will be looking into the marketing part of it, the marketing of the paper and other thing. So personnel, as you know, HR, they take care of this. Finance is very important. The whole fulcrum of the organization rests on this finance. They are the people who monitor the inflow and the outflow of the funds in a newspaper organization. Last but not the least is the newspaper is produced. Production of a newspaper. I have been in this field for the past 35 to 40 years. Production of a newspaper. So I have hundreds of my students who produce the paper, who bring out the paper daily by remaining. They're awake throughout the night, and they bring out the paper at morning 4 o'clock. The paper is brought out, and then only they leave the offices. So production is one of the areas where we normally don't allow anybody in the machine section once the paper is released. That is, once editorial people give a green signal, we start printing this the newspaper. At that time, we don't allow anybody because the newspaper is printed at a tremendous speed. It is printed from a reel of paper, and the entire paper is printed. 24 pages are printed in all the 4 colors that we print back and then folding and then gathering and all those things. All the newspapers come out, the ink pura dry bhi ho jayega, all the papers are counted 50. Then a bundle is made with plastic sheet is wrapped and it comes into the other end of the machine. It's a three-storied building. The machine is about three-storied building costing about 100 crores. 100 crores, mind you. So the Hindu has a machine which is about 100 crores, Mitsubishi. So it's a very amazing. It's like something happening, something terribly revolutionary happening when you see this machine. And then the bundle of the paper is there right at the end of the machine. And at the end of the machine, we have the beginning of uh, the 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 vehicle or the truck that you have got, where this is bundled into the truck, and the truck zoom to railway stations, bus stops, airports, and then to all the paper, to clock tower, and then वहाँ पूरा पेपर वाला आके वो पूरा नीचे फैल के फुटपाथ में फैल के वो पूरा सॉर्ट आउट करके हर एक बंदा अपना साइकिल में, या आजकल मोटरसाइकिल में आ रहे. मोटरसाइकिल चेंज हो गया. एक जमाने में पैदल से आते थे, बाद में साइकिल हो गया, इसके बाद में मोटरसाइकिल. Okay, they come in motorcycle and then they deliver it at every place. Even four-storied building, they throw the paper, wrap it nicely, and they throw it in such a way it goes into the fourth floor balcony also. But this is how actually a newspaper structure of a newspaper organized. So many departments are there. All these departments, unless they coordinate with each other, paper will not come out. So we may have the best of the editors. Now you may be some of the best of the writers. Some of you may be the best photographers. Some of you may be creative, um, creative writers. You are very good in that. But that doesn't serve the purpose unless all departments coordinate. And that is how the newspaper comes out successfully. This is what we mean by the structure of a newspaper. But then who owns the newspaper? The another important area we should know is about who owns the newspaper. So पता है आप कौन own करते हैं? So we'll discuss about ownership of newspapers. Who are all the people who own a newspaper? So if you to go into the good olden days, there were time when sole individuals started newspapers. New York Times was started by one individual, only one person. So later it became, uh, uh, sole proprietorship, or we call a single owner. Then started very modestly, and then newspapers began growing. There is a chain of newspapers. Chain of newspapers. Hindu is published from. Let me tell you, Hindu is published from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 places Hindu is published. This Hindu is published from 21 places. The ownership is the hub of the ownership is in Chennai, but then there are different editions also. Sometimes it's known as a chain ownership. Sometimes it is also a partnership. Sometimes it's a company. Sometimes it's a cross media ownership. You have your own what you call it as a. You can have your own TV. You can have your own newspaper. Can you give me an example of a newspaper which has got a newspaper as well as a TV channel, Telugu or English or Hindi?
ABN, Andhra Jyoti.
Very good. ABN Andhra Jyoti has a channel. Sakshi has a channel.
India
Okay.
Today.
NDTV, India Today. Okay. Anything else? या इट राइट न्यूज़पेपर और कोई न्यूज़पेपर है जिसका चैनल है So in लोगों को क्या कहते हैं कि क्रॉस मीडिया ओनरशिप दे आर एबल टू ओन all these things. ETV, right? Very good, Ramanagaru. You are very good. You have said ETV is a very good example of that. In fact, ETV is the first pioneer in starting this cross media ownership. Another one is conglomerate. वो हर चीज रहेगा उसको उसके छत के नीचे everything, not only newspaper, but you will have even chemicals, fertilizer, cement, rubber, चप्पल उपल सब कुछ सब इंडस्ट्रीज भी होके conglomerate. Newspaper is also one of the industries that some of these bodies can have. So this is how normally the ownership is there. But then, as you know very well, newspapers by and large uh, are valued, are given
Sorry to interrupt,
importance,
sir,
are
but you
respected
used some word.
mainly on the basis of the freedom given to the editor. Is that happening? Tell me.
No,
Yeah, is
I
that
don't
happening?
think.
Very good. No, but I mean, we cannot say totally it is not happening. It is happening.
Partially, it is there.
No, not even partially. We can fingertips. We can count such papers which are really very professional, very ethical, which are not afraid, which are maintaining some standards of journalism, including the ethics part of it. Also, well-established newspapers do, but sometimes also they also are helplessly, you know. Are not in a position to exercise. But anyway, having said all this, those zamana tha jahan we used to have the editor used to be the final word. The editor, otherwise normally good old editors, used to quit the newspaper on the same day. The moment their freedom is affected, they would just put on the paper, they just walk out. They may be coming with a pen and or whatever it is, they just walk out. वो अपना पैजामा जुब्बा पहन के आता हूँ वैसे चले जाएगा वो. The freedom is because it is on that condition he enters as editor. So we have such editors who are very very sensitive about this particular part of it. And we had Goenka, the most bold person today is Goenka's actually death anniversary, October 5th. He was a very straightforward man who suffered a lot. So editors have to get prepared to go to jail, to get prepared to chappals bhi uske upar fenkte hain, or even attacked or even assassinated. We have seen a good number of journalists also, how they get, we have seen Adnan Khashoggi, how he was murdered, very brutally, very brutally. So what happens is that ownership, earlier days, the business of newspaper was not that, you know, it was not that difficult because people were more worried about reading the. Nowadays, it is not like that. Now, business is separate, writing is separate, so it's entirely a different ball game. And unless because bringing out a newspaper is not that easy these days. Okay, that's why you need a lot of money, and when you need money, you need business people. playing their own role in ensuring that the paper survives. And all these papers we have seen survived more than 100 years. Anyway, that having said that, we have completed unit 2 there. You have any doubts? I can wait for a minute or so. I will just have a gulp of water, and then if you have any doubts, you feel free to ask me. So far, yeah, any doubts, please?
Sir, I'm sorry, but I have to leave the session because I had a very urgent meeting to attend.
Please go
I
ahead,
just
no problem.
need your email
Yeah,
ID
yeah.
so that I can at least ping you on or queries which are related
No,
to
what I'll do, one, that's a very good thing. I would like to make it a PP to every one of you. Is I'll give you my, yeah, here is my, the one thing. This is my number. You can always WhatsApp if you, after when you go through the course material and when you really stumble upon a very good doubt or anything, feel free to send WhatsApp to this number. And I'll instantly reply to the extent possible. Within 24 hours, I normally reply. I don't keep anything pending for more than a day. Okay. So you can feel free to do that. And you want my mail address also. I have no problem in giving you a mail address. Wait a minute. At, okay, please take it. Put it in. I have put in the chat. All of you, you can please take this, and then my phone number is there, and my mail address is there. Feel free to send the doubts to me, and I'll clarify then and there itself. When you go through the perhaps course material, you'll be able to know. Okay, Shailaja, you can go, no problem. Right now, I'll just go ahead with block 2 now, unit 3. Okay, unit 3 what is news? Can anyone tell me what is news? हाँ शेख शाहनवाज साहब बोलिए न्यूज क्या है आपके हिसाब से व्हाट इज न्यूज या हुजैफा हुजैफा अली बोलिए
Sir, news
हाँ
will
शेख
give 24 hours, I mean, 24 hours
anything in
information to us. To some.
ओके ओके राइट
anything in
Arnab.
unknown informing to someone, sir, means any
Oh,
unknown
very
thing
good. Anything
informing.
that is not known is informed, and that is news. Very good. Anything else? Anybody else has got? You all people can tell me. Swati, what is news in your view? Can you please tell me what is news according to you? Feel free. Don't worry. Just Swati or Madhu 360. Yeah, can you please unmute and talk, or please chat? Send it through chat. What is news? Yeah, okay, right. I'll tell you what we mean by news. Now, as Uzaifa said, as Shana said, anything that is not informed, very well said. Anything that is new is news. जो हम नहीं जानते हैं लेकिन जो हमें बताते हैं तो वो अखबार बन जाता है खबर बन जाता है इट बिकम्स ए न्यूज फॉर अस एंड द मीडियम क्या है अखबार न्यूज़पेपर थ्रू विच आई गेट द न्यूज so the many definitions are there concept is there news concept good old concept क्या है कि when dog bites man it is not news but when man bites dog it is news. Do you agree? So we all agree that it is news. पुराना जमाना सबसे पुराना जमाना पहले पहले टाइम पे ये डेफिनेशन है अब इसका पूरा माहौल बदल गया now everything is changed. Anything that is new is news. So anything that is routine is not news. Okay. हर दिन मेट्रो चलता मियापुर से दिलसुख नगर से मियापुर मेट्रो चलते रहता है हाँ? एक दिन मेट्रो पटरी में से बाहर आके नीचे गिरने के तक आ गया था एक्सीडेंट हो गया था तो दैट बिकम्स न्यूज समथिंग अवे फ्रॉम द रेगुलर some irregular thing happens some unforeseen things happen something most unexpected way happens somebody suddenly dies. Sitaram Yechury's son 34-year-old son is a very good journalist. Sitaram Yechury is a very famous communist leader. He's a very famous leader. He's a Politburo member. His son is a 34-year-old young journalist. He writes for some news laundry, wire, and all those things, independent media. He dies of COVID. That becomes news. That becomes news not only because he is son of Sitaram Yechury, but because he is himself a journalist and also because he dies of COVID. He dies in the course of doing his work as a journalist. So that becomes news. Always remember, news can be anything. It can be it can be on a person, it can be on कल शाहरुख खान का बेटे को पकड़े, तो क्या है उसमें उसको एक 3-4 ग्राम का पकड़े, उसको वो न्यूज बन गया. लेकिन व्हाट अबाउट दोज 3,000 tons of drug caught worth about 21 18,000 or 21,000 crores, that is गुजरात में पकड़े वो लोग, उसका पूरा अभी हिसाब नहीं निकल रहा है. वो खबर में, वो भी खबर में आ गया. लेकिन इससे बड़ा खबर ये शाहरुख खान के पास 2-3 ग्राम का मिला बोले तो वो बड़ा क्यों न्यूज क्यों होता है? बिकॉज इज सन ऑफ शाहरुख खान, ए सेलिब्रिटी इज देयर. ओके,
Actually, all are
नागर
running after TPR, TRP.
TRPs, very good. Right? Yeah, I do agree with you. All are running after TRP ratings. Yes, you're absolutely right. And like that, like मतलब देखिए ये टीवी वाले तो 3 दिन लगातार they went on with nobody, as if we have no other work. Everybody is interested only in why they have divorced Samantha and Naga Chaitanya. अब पूरा इन लोगों का इंस्टाग्राम का पूरा निकाल के वो न्यूज बन जाता है वो. It doesn't really, luckily it doesn't happen so much in case of newspapers. So news has a concept, it has got many areas, and how quickly the news has come. Latest news, what happens is that some news is there, and then another something which is more latest comes, this becomes background, it gets eclipsed completely, so this goes away. So every news that keeps coming closes the other news. So only it may have a life for a few hours in that newspaper, next day we don't know. We have seen yesterday how that fellow, the car fellow went into the farmers and killed them and also and so forth. We have seen that completely. So everything, so it keeps on changing nationally, internationally. Okay, everywhere. And is it happening nearby, very close to us, or is it happening anywhere else? All those things are taken into account, and all these constitute what is known as news. एक एक बंदा ने बहुत अच्छा डेफिनेशन दिया है, इट्स वेरी लॉजिकल था, कॉमन सेंस में था. वो बोला एनीथिंग न्यू है ना, न्यू. और एक one person said news is NEWS, north, east, west, south. When you get information from all the 4 directions of the world, of the country, of the city, of the state, then that also is news. Okay, they have said that. One such a definition is that. Another definition best is somebody said new. New मतलब नया. So new is singular. वो बोला एक s लगा दो साथ में. News is plural. जो भी नया है, जो नया नया चीज जो है, दो एक से बढ़ के दो, तो वो पूरा मिलके न्यूज बोल के बोला. So that sounded very logical, though it is somewhat crude. This is what is actually the definition, or rather the concept of news. Whenever we think about this, whenever we think about news, you should be able to know. So when you see news channels are there, how many channels are there? So many channels are there. People are interested. Why are people interested in news? Can you tell me why?
It's
Why are
an
people
human
interested?
human nature, sir. Human nature, sir.
Uh-huh.
Means willing to know unknowing things.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, you're right. But why are people interested to know?
To
Anything?
update ourselves
Yeah.
according to the situation.
Okay. So it's in one account, Pulitzer. Pulitzer is a very famous name. Pulitzer Award is given to famous journalists, photographers, war correspondents. Joseph Pulitzer is one of the publishers of the New York World. In his name also, the praise is always given. Now, उसने क्या कहा that news को is that he defined news as something original, something distinctive, something dramatic, something romantic, something thrilling, something unique. ओके, यूनिक. और टेस्ला वाला रॉकेट भेज रहा है, हर पैसे लेके सब लोग इसमें जाके आ रहे हैं nowadays. समथिंग थ्रिलिंग, समथिंग यूनिक, समथिंग क्यूरियस, एनीथिंग ह्यूमरस, anything odd, matlab strange, or anything that needs to be talked. It's worth discussing. It's worth discussing. For a farmer, what is important for a farmer is कितना minimum support price है, आज कितना दे रहा वो. He has given so much, that's news for him, much talked about. So so news is anything that is interesting. Okay, we should be able to know that anything that is interesting, whatever is happening in the world, whatever is happening in our culture, whatever is happening in our, whatever is interested to our audience, and that becomes news. Okay, uh, anybody should know that unless there is no point in knowing the news after it is dead. So news has a life. आप अगर बॉम्बे में देखेंगे, in Bombay newspaper comes by morning 4:30 5 o'clock. Okay, you know, by 11 o'clock they get a newspaper, by 11 12 o'clock they get a paper known as midday. Matlab from morning 5 to 11 o'clock that newspaper is there. That midday paper will give the latest news of what happened between 5 and 11. And in Bombay has again by evening when you're going home, they have an evening newspaper. So whatever is latest, people are very much interested to know what is latest. Some people buy like that, and that is what is actually news. So in is one of the concept is that. So when we had this assassination of Indira Gandhi, they brought out a new a supplement itself. When Indira Gandhi was assassinated on October 31st at 9:20 a.m., the news came by 10 o'clock. जब you know cell phone उल phone कुछ नहीं था, रेडियो में आता था news. Okay, so obviously, you know, there are many people who wait for the news also. We know that Jayalalitha was serious. Any day, आज भी मर जाएगी, कल भी मर जाएगी, कब मरेगी? This is another problem, you know, where people are eager to know, though they are also worried also to know. People are worried. So news is a perishable commodity. Perishable means jaisa like how you buy, you know, the vegetables. That's perishable. It has life. After that, it becomes stale. Okay. After that, it becomes stale. So please remember that you know everything is news. Suppose demonetization was there when Modi introduced that, it was very news. But આજકાલ now it's no more a news because it's too old. The news, anything too old, we forget it so fast because the other news makes us to forget it instantly. Okay, RBI comes with a new note, 500 rupee note, then it tells you how to identify and all those things. So that's all about the news concept and definition. You have anything more to say? You can add. Do you want to add anything to what I have already said? Do you want to add anything else? Anyway, we'll see what we mean by elements of news now. Okay, we'll see what we mean by elements of news. Let me go to chat and then I'll to, yeah, I want news means recent events, sir. Yes, and they want to know what is happening. Yes, Ramana. They want to know around them. Yes, what's happening around them. That's absolutely good. So one of them now we will see today the elements of news and news values. What are the elements of news? One of the most important thing all of you should know is that timeliness. When was that? When did the incident happen? Of course, you know, in electronic media, television में तो बहुत लगातार live मिल जाएगा आपको. Yeah, right now what's happening you can know. You know, we had the biggest problem when Bombay incidents took place. Bombay terrorist attack हुआ था, तो जो बहुत गड़बड़ हो गया था. ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया वाले बहुत उत्सुक थे, बहुत ज्यादा होशियारी दिखाए थे. लाइव लाइव बोलकर क्या किया, आपस में उन लोगों ने टेररिस्ट को लाइव दिखा दिया. So terrorist fellow in Pakistan was monitoring the whole live television coverage and he was guiding the terrorists. इधर जाओ उधर जाओ, वो आ रहा है ऑलरेडी, उधर ब्लैक कैट कमांडो आ रहा है, उधर सीआरपीएफ आ गया, तो उधर से उधर जाओ, तो उधर से उधर जाओ. So they were giving directions and then suddenly they realized, then they immediately alerted the media, अरे मामा जरा बंद करो, आपके कैमरा पूरा बंद करो, वो लोग इसको देख के पूरा they are creating havoc. Then now we have a new National Broadcasting Association which has put specific guidelines. Whenever you are covering any terrorist incidents, you will have to be extra careful and you will have to not report live unless cleared by the police department or the intelligence department. So now वो भी बदलाव आ गया था after अपना ये riots के बाद में. The timeliness is also important, but that doesn't. Proximity. How close is that happening? We are interested in what is happening in Hyderabad, what's happening in Delhi, but then what is happening in Washington. Some Washington 50 people died, but in Hyderabad 2 people died. For me, 2 people died in Hyderabad is more important because proximity. वॉशिंगटन बहुत दूर है, ठीक है, 50 जने मर गए उधर शूट आउट में, बट इधर मेरे को 2 जने मर गए इधर. So sometimes what happens, proximity is how close is the event or the incident that is taking place, or does that issue have any conflict? Is there any conflict there? Is there anything clash happening? That is also very important. That also occupy elements of news. Whenever there is a conflict, and there is news. When Revanth Reddy is attacked, there is news. Okay, when students were lathi charged, there is news. When somebody is arrested, Priyanka Gandhi was arrested yesterday. There is news. She was stopped there and she was arrested, not allowed to go to that place where the farmers were mowed down by the vehicle of the minister's son and so on, वगैरह वगैरह. Then और क्या है कि consequences, impact क्या है? Some impact. Sometimes it creates an impact. What impact does it create? There is a communal clash somewhere in old city or somewhere else. Then immediate, what is the impact it has? Curfew, and then maybe a day or two. Maybe they will then see what is the consequence, what is the impact it is creating. Now, if you take international thing, Taliban has now come back to Afghanistan. What is its impact on India? 20 साल इंडिया ने वहां जाके इतना अच्छा डेवलप किया, $1 billion, पूरा बिलियन वर्थ बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स हमने स्पेंड किया है. 20 साल का पूरा खलास हो गया, फिर तालिबान इज बैक इनटू द गेम. सो व्हाट इज इट्स इम्पैक्ट ऑन India? What is the impact of China supporting Taliban and on India? And what is the impact of Pakistan, directing Taliban and its impact on India? So this also creates a lot of news, elements of news. So please remember, anything that is directly or indirectly, nationally, internationally, regionally, locally, when all these things happen, we do take into consideration the impact. Then we also have what is known as anything that is new development. आज ने KTR का क्या कहा था? Today KTR has told, yes, अभी थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा, but we are not forgotten that metro has to be extended to Old City. It has been a long pending thing, and they have been giving stepmotherly treatment to Old City. And they are supposed to have introduced it long time back. Now 3 phases हो गया. Fourth phase is our Old City extension. What are they doing? Lakhs of people are waiting for the metro train to be extended from MGBS towards that Falaknama and other area. So, what is the development that is taking place? The development also gives a lot of news. Haritaharam, we have now increased the forest, the greenery in Telangana has increased by 11%. The forest area in Telangana has increased by 11%, which has not happened in the last 40, 50 years. It has happened in the last 10 years. 11% has increased. हरितहारम, green, और जो भी है, अपना water table भी बढ़ गया, ऊपर आ गया, because of so many developmental activities that take. People are interested to know. People are very happy to know that the groundwater has increased. All over Telangana, groundwater has. हर जगह जाइए हरा भरा. पहले क्या था? केवल पत्थर था, मिट्टी था. अभी हर जगह जाइए आप, wherever you go, Nalgonda, Warangal, Khammam, Karimnagar, Nizamabad, you go wherever you go, it's full of greenery or full of water. So development, people are interested to know what is development. It is not giving credit to X, Y, Z. जो भी हो, जो भी बंदा वहां पर हो, कुर्सी पे हो, ये हुआ या नहीं हुआ, ये डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, 24 घंटा करंट आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा है, राशन मिल रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है, जो भी है. All these things also create is also an element of news. They always come in the form of news. Another important area we should know is human interest. Does it have any human interest? There are so many success stories of people, human interest also. There are so many places where humanity has always ruled. During COVID time, we have seen how humanity helped a lot to the people who were suffering. Everybody suffered. पैसे वाला को एक ही बार कोविड ने एक ही दिखाया था कि उससे कोई भी मतलब नहीं है. जो गरीब है, अमीर है, मुस्लिम है, हिंदू है, किरस्तान है, सबको फाड़ के फेंक दिया. कोविड ने सबको एक ही लेवल में हरा के रख दिया था. एवरीबॉडी वाज पुट ऑन द सेम लेवल. And you know that what happened at that time, human interest, how migrants would go away and how people had to be. And we all heard about those stories of a girl taking her father cycling 1300 kilometers, 1400 kilometers. Can you imagine cycling all the way to her home because no trains, no buses, nothing, everything must stop. Corona, ye wo bolkar. So human interest stories are the many human interest stories also create is one of the most important elements of news. So next time when you open a newspaper and when you read this newspaper, you will find news of everything that we discuss now. We discussed about timeliness, you will find news story about that. You will discuss proximity, कहीं आपके घर के आपके बगल में कुछ हुआ, you will be able to know. Conflict, you will be able to find out. Prominence, you will be able to find out. Prominence means celebrity. Prominence, I mean, anybody who is very prominent people. It can be politician, it can be cinema star, it can be anybody. Okay, today Sindhu has appreciated. What is that girl here? Hmm, what is that girl? चेन्नई पिक्चर का हीरोइन का नाम क्या है वो विराट कोहली का वाइफ का नाम है वो नहीं और एक दूसरा वाला है what is that Padukone? This one heroine, na? What is her name? Padukone. Paduk.
Deepika Padukone.
Ah, very good, Deepika Padukone. Thank you very much. Now today Sindhu has appreciated because Deepika Padukone played with Sindhu badminton, and she said, "Wow, she's really a great player." I never thought, but Deepika nowadays plays, but she friendly match में she played. No prominence. I mean now Sindhu is a prominent lady, Deepika is prominent. These people can create news. So people are interested to know. That's a very good news, only healthy news. People are interested to know more about this than perhaps Naga Chaitanya and Samantha. Okay, or it's quite possible. Or we have also seen all these examples of consequences, impact. We have seen what is development, human interest. Another important area is controversy. हर एक चीज में कंट्रोवर्सी निकालेंगे हम हर एक चीज में एक लफ्ज बोला 100 जने आके उसका अलग अलग मीनिंग निकालते हैं ओके if you listen to it all depends on how you interpret very good debates or how you interpret the meetings or anything. People may suspect, people may respect, people may introspect. All these things can take place when you're discussing, say, an issue or anybody who says something good अच्छा इरादे से बोलने से भी वो controversial हो जाएगा. Anything that Owaisi tells, because it becomes controversial and a communal color is given. Nobody goes into the merits of what he is trying to say. क्या बोल रहा है, पॉइंट है या नहीं है, कौन बोल रहा छोड़ दो, क्या बोला, forget about the messenger, but what about the message? इस मैसेज में कुछ दम है या नहीं है, is there any life in that message or not? This is what is very important, but that also creates a lot of interest among people. What kind of anything that Mamata Banerjee says becomes controversial for BJP. Anything that Modi says becomes controversial to Mamata Banerjee. So anything that Bandi Sanjay says becomes controversial. Anything that is said becomes controversy. Controversy is always, sought after, or readers are very much interested to know about controversies. It is a human psychology. ये अपना बाजू वाला घर और उसके बाजू वाला वो दोनों लड़ते समय ज्यादा दिलचस्पी तीसरा वाला दिखाता है. वो दोनों आपस में दोस्त भी हो जाते हैं, लेकिन तीसरा वाला मतलब हम लोग जैसे innocent people also sometimes we become unnecessarily we become star. They become star attraction for people like us. Then there is one more element known as bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre is a bizarre means something which is आप कहीं भी सोचा भी नहीं होगा, but it happens. हमने many times we have seen the footage also in railway platform when the train moves. When a lady passenger is she slips into that, about to slip into the under the train, and then some security fellow pulls her out, and the footage shows how she got saved her life just by a fraction of a second or by an angle, this fellow pulling her out. Or sometimes they fall under the train, nothing happens, the train goes away and she gets up, he or she gets up. Very most unusual, that is known as that is another element of news. Many times these two things happen, bizarre. That is a word bizarre I put in the chat. That is another last element of the news that we have got. We have about 3 more minutes to. So we have these things, and we have types of news. We have seen all these things can be, features in the form of features. It can be in the form of editorials. It can be in the form of profiles of newsmaker. We can have all these types of news. It can be political. Yesterday, while discussing anatomy of newspaper, we discussed a lot about this political news, social news, legislature news, what's happening in assembly, what's happening in parliament, who said what, वो कौन किसको कितना गाली दिया और कितना sensible बात किया, business, economic, financial news, sports, crime, all these things are known as different types of news, that we come across. So tomorrow we'll go through with other units like qualities of a good news reporting and other things that we'll discuss tomorrow. I have got another 3 minutes, so you can feel free to talk to me now. You can have any doubts. You can please tell me if you have any doubts. Okay? Are you able to understand what
Sir,
I'm saying, Monica?
sir,
Are you able to understand? Yes.
sir,
Yes.
why paper is, I mean, cheap? Why paper is cheap, sir? I mean,
You mean by rate cost? Huh?
yes, sir.
A very good question, Mashik. It's a very good question you have put. Why is paper very cheap? I agree with you. Actually, production of a paper, if you want to produce a paper, it costs about 16 rupees. But we are selling for 4 or 5 rupees or 6 rupees. But because it is cheap, because it is affordable for any person who wants to buy the paper. Okay, it is affordable. That's one thing. Agar zyada hai, to he will not be able to afford also. There are times when people used to go to library and read the newspapers because they could not afford in those days. Now newspapers are about 12 rupees on a Sunday. Hindu Sunday is 12 rupees. It is cheap because the newspapers are selling it at very, very low cost because they are trying to recover that money through advertisements. Advertisements आने के बाद they are able to recover that money. नहीं तो they will be in loss. Every day for each paper they are in loss of about 12 rupees. आपने अगर 6 रुपए में अगर एक पेपर खरीदा है ना, आप उसको 12 रुपए नुकसान करें। आप नुकसान मतलब उसको 18 रुपए हुआ जो पेपर आप 6 रुपए में खरीदे। You understood what I said, economics? Janas, have you understood what I meant? Uh,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So that is the reason it is cheap, because it is available for a common man, for any person who want to read. But आजकल कौन पढ़ रहा है, ये भी एक प्रॉब्लम हो गया ना। आजकल ई पेपर पढ़ रहे हैं। ई पेपर भी कौन पढ़ सकते हैं? अभी पेपर जो मुफ्त में मिलता है, people are able to read that. But now soon papers will not be available on e version because they are asking you to subscribe. They're saying please pay, subscribe, pay for 3 months so much, for 6 months so much, for 1 year so much. So like that, I spend about 1,000 rupees every month for about 4 or 5 papers that I get, one Telugu newspaper and 4 English newspapers. I get it to my house. He throws it in my house. I'm the only fellow who gets 4 newspapers in my entire 5 newspapers in my entire colony. Mine is the biggest bill for the newspaper fellow. So he doesn't forget me at all. But I read it because I had to teach you. I'm in the field of teaching. I read it. But for you, I suppose an ordinary anybody who wants to become a journalist should read at least one newspaper, should at least listen to one news capsule every day. 20 minutes news सुनना है और टीवी बैठ के देखना है, then only you can become something like that. Okay, we have now 11:30. I think you have one more class, so I cannot intrude into others' classes. We'll catch up tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
On 7th, sir.
Huh. Right. Thank you.